Very welcome to this special edition of Cui Bono. This time a try in English language, and like you might hear, my mother language is not English, so there might be slight pauses and not the 100% correct vocabulary. But anyway, I tried my best, and I'm very happy that Michael Hudson took his time to talk to us. And as a short introduction, I want to say that Michael Hudson is the president of the Institute for the Study of Long-Term Economic Trends, called ILET, a Wall Street financial analyst, distinguished research professor of economics at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and author of The Bubble and Beyond and multiple other books. He is also working as an international consultant for governments, for example, for Latvia, Iceland, and China. He is a harsh critic of the handling of the governments in Europe and the United States related to the financial crisis, which is, in his opinion, a banking crisis. And in this interview, he will give us his insight into the actual developments in Cyprus. This interview was recorded short before the Cyprus government obeyed to the demands of the IMF and the ECB. Nevertheless, we have here a clear insight from Professor Michael Hudson what should happen in Europe and Cyprus. So, very welcome, Professor Hudson. Thank you for taking your time to talking to us about the problems or the situation we are having right now in Cyprus. So, to make a little intro, I would like to read a very short quote out of a very actual article out of the Wall Street Journal from today. Is the euro a currency or a prison? Wearing the disguise of austerity, the euro has emerged as the gatekeeper of what is fast becoming a debtor's prison. The Troika of the ECB, IMF, and European Commission, acting in concert, have become more like another troika of judge, jury, and executioner for any nation within the eurozone that dares not follow the letter of budgetary imposition. So we had, if I see it correctly, Cyprus has related to its GDP an extreme, huge banking sector. And the banks are mainly funded by deposits, I think, so not big bondholders inside. And something went wrong. Do you have any information what happened?
You're correct that Cyprus is funded mainly by deposits, and there are about 70 billion euros in deposits. Only about 20 billion are Russian, so Russia is not the problem there. What makes Cyprus different from other banks are two things. One, as a banking center, the economy largely consists of services, largely banking services. So it's services that run the economy. And while its bank debt is high to GDP, so are its bank assets. That's how offshore banking centers work, whether they're in the Caribbean or whether they're in Panama or other countries. Secondly, in Cyprus, a lot of the pension funds keep their money in the banks instead of...
Which pension funds?
The local Cypriot pension funds are kept in the banks instead of in the stock market. So the EU's plan is basically an anti-labor plan above all others. It strong-armed Cyprus, the EU Troika, strong-armed Cyprus into bailing out Greece. And especially the one bank that is in trouble, Laiki, is a Greek-owned bank with Arab financial backing. That's the only bank that's really in serious trouble. It's not a Cypriot bank. It's a foreign-owned bank. And because it's owned largely in Greece, most of its loans are to Greece. So the Cypriot crisis is a follow-up of the Greek crisis that was forced earlier. So this is part of an echo effect of Greece. The European Common Market or the EU Commission didn't want the bondholders for Greece to lose, so they forced the banks to more or less take a loss.
Sorry to interrupt you. So
Yeah.
Two questions. One, you say a follow-up to the Greece crisis. So did the Cypriot bank lose money because they were involved into did they hold Greek bonds and lost?
Yeah. Yes, and they made heavy loans to Greek businesses that are now suffering. Mainly the Laiki Bank, not all the Cypriot banks. The Cypriot banks where the Russians operate out of basically lend their money back to Russia. So Cypriot is an investment center recycling Russian money back into Russia. That's not so the Russian deposits never were the problem. The problems were almost entirely the loans to Greece that affected one bank that was a Greek-owned bank. Now, normally that bank would be put into insolvency. That's what normally should happen. That's not done. For the first time, the European Union is demanding that depositors take a hit, and mainly labor depositors, mainly the pension funds, the labor unions, and local Cypriot businesses. So this is done in a way to create maximum destruction of the Cypriot economy. The rumors are now that Cyprus has refused to accept the European terms and is negotiating with Russia to see whether it can sell the British airbase there that the Britain was going to turn.
Exactly. Just to give a short information, we have there on Cyprus, which is a former British colony, there are two, it's called sovereign base areas of Akrotiri and Dekilia. And these air bases are actually a part of the United Kingdom. So this is it's like two little states in the country which are air bases. And so what my feeling was the whole time, like Cyprus, is it not a kind of a dependance of the city of London, a tax haven, so that the British are also big time involved into the banking sector in Cyprus?
It's much worse than you're talking about. It's worse because many of the Cypriot debts are owed under British law, not European continental law. And the British law, normally the debts that Cyprus has would be scaled back, and the bank debts would be scaled back. But as long as the Cypriot banking system and government have its debts under British law, not other law, this enables the bondholders to undertake lawsuits and seize its property, much as is occurring with Argentina, with vulture funds these days. So the problem is Cypriot's connection with the British economy as a whole. I don't believe its economic problem can be cured until it solves the political problem of dependency on Britain and radically changes the structure. The problem is structural. The debts exceed the amount that can be paid. That's true throughout Europe. And so what the European Commission is saying is that Italian depositors will lose, Spanish depositors will lose, the bondholders will not lose, the 1% will not lose, labor has to take a hit. This is the first shot in a vicious class war against labor that is unprecedented for the last century. The class war is back in business.
Well,
financial arena.
You told me in our last interview, you said that can't be paid back won't.
Yes. The question is, how will it not be paid? The only way it can be paid is by Cyprus making a deal with Russia that will radically rewrite the politics and the military situation of Europe.
So Putin can say, okay, we fund your banking system if the Brits leave and we take over the air bases, for example.
Yes. And the ports. Russia would love a Mediterranean port.
Oh my God! But this
Russian battleships are on their way to the Mediterranean now.
Unbelievable. But I think that NATO wouldn't agree with such a plan.
What does it have to do with matters? Then Cyprus is not a member of NATO.
That is very interesting, because by us they paint the picture a little bit like this. Look, this is all Russian money there. The money
But it's not
oligarchs.
Russian money.
Yeah.
That's very important to show this is not a Russian money problem. This is vicious propaganda by Angela Merkel's party. It is a false rewriting of history. It's purely to attract German voters. German voters are being told a fictitious story, not at all what's actually happening.
Well, so that is the reason why the Russians let their deposits on their banks, because they knew that their banks were safe.
Yes, and their banks are safe. None of these bank problems in Cyprus concern the Russian banks at all. Furthermore, Russia was not even consulted in the bailout, so it has no reason at all to consult Europe in this. Last night, the BBC News sent a notice saying Cypriot, and I'm quoting, Cypriot government member of parliament Mario Mavridis tells Newsnight of the BBC, if a deal with the Troika can't be found or Cyprus can't raise 6 billion euros, they will leave the euro.
Okay.
That's on the BBC.
And I mean, like, if we look at the size of the other bailouts for Greece and Ireland, this sum in itself sounds very small. But
Yep.
somehow they want to set an example, or what?
That's
I mean,
exactly correct. Exactly correct. They want to set an example. And the intention of this is to very quickly bankrupt Spain, bankrupt Italy, bankrupt Portugal. The question is whether Italy, Spain, and Portugal will now simply withdraw from the euro. The eurozone is dead. Permanent.
the Eurozone is there. That is that's for sure. But like we in Germany, we have all these targets, two saldos. So that means if Spain leaves the Eurozone, then Germany has a big bill.
That may indeed may be the case.
So what is then this? So I don't understand. For me, this twist in Cyprus, was like I had the impression that the Troika was just thinking, we try something new, and the other things didn't work out, because in Ireland they wrote all the debts onto the people, right?
Yeah.
So that was their solution.
But obviously that cannot happen for Cyprus because the debts are far too great. And that is over. Nobody else is ever going to do what Ireland did and commit suicide for a generation and lose a generation to paying gamblers and bankers for money that never should have been bailed out.
So if you would be a decision maker in Cyprus, what would be your plan? What would you decide about it?
It is called an asymmetrical response. The response cannot be, certainly, I would agree with what they're already doing, which is not to agree to the Troika plan, not to agree to write down the deposits of labor, to insist that all of the pension funds and labor and business accounts be saved, to try to work with Russia for an asymmetrical solution, and to work with Greece to make a common united front against the Troika, with Greece, Spain, Italy, and saying, let us draw the line. Let us simply expropriate the robbers. They are trying to expropriate us. They're trying to grab our oil rights. Germany is trying to to force us into selling its oil rights for nothing. Let us withdraw from Europe and draw the line and simply wipe out the German, Dutch, and English deposits. Let's have a clean slate like Germany had in 1947 and start all over again.
Okay, but so this would be, I mean, from my perspective, for Germany, this wouldn't be too nice. It's not very positive for Germany.
Well, the question is, what is Germany? I don't think that Germany is its banks. The EU is not good for Germany if it has become simply a lobbying organization for the banks. It's not good for Germany to have its policy and European policy run by the banks and by the 1%. The banks are not good economic managers. They will wreck Germany just as they've wrecked Italy and Greece and now Cyprus. So Germany has no reason to particularly support its banks. Its banks have been following a path that is unsustainable, and already they've already lost an enormous amount in the American crisis, and they're going to lose all over again. There's no way they can avoid losing the fact that they have behaved recklessly, and they basically use a kind of junk economics. And as long as in Germany it is there's no economic history being taught, no financial history being taught, and as long as Germans are given a false myth of finance and economics, the situation is going to backfire very, very badly.
Yeah, and just to give you a little information, always when Sarah Wagenknecht is speaking in the Bundestag, Merkel is leaving. So, she has no intention to listen. She is a complete ignorant person. It's unbelievable. So a little bit like Helmut Kohl and Wolfgang Schäuble as a treasury secretary. I have the feeling, he uses vocabularies like, we have to calm the markets but it's all like these phrases. So I have the impression that, he follows, a plan of the banks, but not in the interest of the German people.
That is exactly the problem.
Yes, and also I cannot see any strategy for Germany. And also, I was sick the last week, so I was reading the Zauberberg of Thomas Mann, and there is this hospital in the mountain where people get treated when they are sick on their lungs, and he describes the atmosphere there and in the pretext of the First World War. And when I see like the feeling here in Germany, which is like I cannot describe it, like if we would all be on tapes to calm us down on Valium a little bit, So this atmosphere is for me very strange. So, but if I see then Greek people, painting Merkel as a Nazi, and same thing now in Cyprus. Also, like bad scene in Spain. So this situation is getting like really mean politically, I think.
Well, you know that the setting for Zauberberg was in what is now the Davos.
Yes, it's Davos, exactly.
Wait,
yes.
Excuse me, I have one call about.
Okay.
Excuse me 1 second. Hello. Hi, I'm on the Skype. Yeah, can I call you back? Yeah. Sorry about that. But also in Zauberberg, each character has its own theory, their own theory of time. There's circular time, there's linear time. And so what we're seeing is a kind of circular time of going back to the beginning.
I heard an interview with Mr. Hannan, who is a conservative member of the European Parliament, and Nigel Farage. And so Nigel Farage is always a bit aggressive. And Hannan said what the Eurozone would need is an orderly an orderly dismantling of the euro and going back to the own currencies.
That's part of it, but in addition to a financial solution, there has to be a change in the tax system. The tax system right now favors finance and favors its major customers, which are real estate and corporate raiders. So the tax system has to be fixed along with the financial system. A financial fix alone will not work. The problem is that the banks have written the tax laws to favor themselves and to make interest tax deductible. and to basically load down economies with debt and create the problems. If you let the banks give you the economic theory to run the economy, then you're going to run up debts that can't be paid, and you're going to get the same problem again and again.
But this, at the end, this destroys also the banks.
Yes, it will. They're self-destructive in the end. They're like a parasite that is too greedy and kills the host.
Yeah, but don't these people see this development?
Yes, they do see it. The bankers all see it, and their plan is to withdraw all the money, to take their money and run, and to get out before the collapse, and to take it all and move it somewhere outside of Europe. That's what they're doing. Right now, in Cyprus, what the banks are doing is taking their money and running.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
that's through all of Europe.
I know a manager from a huge German bank, and what he does is he bought ground outside of Frankfurt, and starts planting vegetables and building a house there, like going back to the roots. Still, he keeps his job and keeps the other thing quiet. But so this guy and a lot of others have the feeling that this play won't turn out well. And I got an email from Paul Feuermann, who worked 40 years in banking, and he was a broker and a trader with UBS, and was then fired when he warned his clients prior to the crisis in 2007 to take their money out, and then he was fired. And he has such a dire scenario in his mind that this all will could end up in a war.
There's not going to be a war. There won't be a military solution. Well, wars used to be fought over the grabbing of property, land, and public infrastructure. But the new battlefield is finance. You can now do by finance what you used to have to do in war. So finance is the new form of warfare, not military.
Okay. But we have another situation, like these 12 billion euros, or however how much this loan would be to Cyprus, is the amount that Ben Bernanke prints in 4 to 5 days.
Yes, and if Europe, that's the other problem, that the European Union does not have a central bank that behaves like a central bank. Of course, the central bank should simply monetize the problem to get over it. But it doesn't want a central bank like that. The commercial banks in Europe, and especially in Germany, have prevented banks from creating money like a central bank is supposed to do, whether it's the Bank of England or the Federal Reserve. So the Eurozone, with its current central bank, must fail, must create a disaster, and must impose austerity. It's necessary for German living standards to fall by 30% fast in order to pay the debts. It's necessary for about 20% of the German population to emigrate. So I hope you're learning Chinese or other languages.
Very interesting. How did you get these numbers?
Leave.
How did you get these numbers? What you
I calculated the effect of emigration. Looking at Latvia is where the neoliberals and the Germans have had a perfect example of free hand. Look at Latvia if you want to see what the banks are planning to do to Germany, because that was their great experiment, and it's because of that they've applied it to Greece. Look at the emigration from Greece. Look at the emigration from Latvia. Look at the decline in the business that's going to happen from the German export industries when it destroys its major export markets, or while it lets the banks destroy its export markets. And you can figure who is going to employ the Germans. And if there's if the employment in Germany's export industries decline, where are these workers going to go if they want to get work? They're going to have to be like the Irish, or like the Icelanders, or like the Latvians, or like the Greeks.
Oh yeah, and they are advertising this already in TV shows, why not moving to another country? Why not going somewhere else? But here in Germany, we have the situation that the salaries are so much, you cannot imagine. There are people, they have 2 jobs and they cannot live from it.
That's amazing.
That is, and it's terrible, because then they have to go to the labor office, and to ask for some additional funding just to get around.
Mm-hmm.
And these people are treated like, like if it would be their problem, and they don't want, we have still no minimum wage in Germany. So people are working for €5.60 in this area. And if you want to have a flat, you pay 700. And so the former worker class people, first of all, lots of factories left, like in the US. There is still production, but not like it used to be. So now these people are desperate, for getting any kind of a job. Plus, they get big pressure from this labor office. So if you don't show up regularly, so they make pressure, and if you don't agree, then they cut your, this small amount of money what you get. So the middle class here in Germany, you can see it is disappearing. And the other thing what I wanted to ask you about, and maybe you disagree with that, because I lived in Hungary and I came back like around 4 years ago. And in these 4 years, because I make all the shopping for the family, the food got at least 35% more expensive in these 4 years.
So will destroy the German economy, and the banks now, because they're not going to lend to Southern Europe anymore, they're going to want to lend to Germans. And how do the German banks lend to Germans? They're going to create a real estate bubble in Germany. Now, so far, Germany's been free of a real estate bubble, despite the fact that it has very low property taxes there. But the banks are now going, if the banks now try to make money domestically in Germany that they used to make in Southern Europe, they will inflate the German property prices just like Spanish property.
It's already happening. It's already happening.
Yes, it is. And that will destroy the middle class.
Why?
Because the people will have to borrow more and more mortgage debt to buy a house. They'll have to go deeper and deeper into debt to buy a new house and pay their wages. More and more of their wages to the bank is mortgage interest.
Yeah, but like we have a relative small amount of people who own houses. So this is a society where most people rent. So in Greece, for example, you have like, I don't know, more than 70% living in their own flat. In Germany, it's the half. So like, and if you want to have a mortgage for a house, first of all, you have to, to put down some money. At least that was all the time like this. And the mortgage rates are fixed. So if you want to buy an apartment, you pay an interest right now of 3.2%, but the prices are rising. Mm-hmm. So the prices of the property, in my opinion, is already, these houses are too expensive. Even we have an aging population, so old people die, and then they have these little houses. But then comes the state and tells you, you have to make all kind of isolation work because of the climate change, and you have to invest. First they tax you, and then you have to invest if you want to sell it. So they make the life they make life miserable. And here in the Frankfurt area, the rents are you can watch how the rents are rising. So it's nearly
that hurt the economy.
Yeah, so families have to leave Frankfurt. They have to go out of town because there are all these investors coming, and that's another question. Like if I follow the development, there seems to be a lot of money from the US coming into Germany. So my question is, like, take it as a conspiracy theory or whatever. If a hedge fund invests in German company or real estate, would it be possible that they simply have lent the money by the Federal Reserve?
In fact, all of the $2 trillion quantitative easing was spent abroad by the banks. None of the money created by the Federal Reserve has stayed within the U.S. economy. Most of it has been for arbitrage on foreign currency arbitrage and interest rate arbitrage. So, yes, certainly the hedge funds are using bank money in effect to invest largely in Germany because they think that the German currency will go up when the euro falls apart.
Mm-hmm. But I see there big trouble coming for Germany because if the currency is rising too much, then this car nation Germany has a real problem to sell its products.
Well, the way that it will keep down its prices will be to put a very heavy land tax, especially on absentee owners of property, to keep the cost of living down. You can keep the cost of living down by taxing rent-yielding properties and by the government doing what made Germany rich in the 19th century, putting as much infrastructure as possible in the public domain rather than letting it be financialized.
Well, but there I have to give you one information which is really scary. We had the Green Party they wanted to have a law that water is a human right.
Yes, it is.
And the CDU, which is the party of Merkel, they agreed and they said at their Parteitag, yes, water is private property. So then came the vote in the Bundestag. And all CDU members of parliament were voting against their own resolution. So they and the SPD together with the CDU, the SPD, they all, they kept neutral, but CDU and FDP were voting against that water is a human right. Then the thing came to Brussels, where there is this commissioner, Monsieur Barnier, and what this man has in mind is the privatization of the water in Europe.
This is crazy. This is awful. This is what the election should be about.
Yeah. That this is what the election should be about, because we have still good water and we have also small water companies in the cities who are public, or half public, and they provide us with payable water, because I've seen a documentary at PBS Frontline where they said that in the south of the US, where the poor Afro-American people are living, that they get a water bill of about $300 per month, these people.
Yes, if water is privatized in Germany, then the cost of living will rise. And if the cost of living rises, then Germany cannot afford to undersell its competitors for exports, and unemployment will rise. And you can see the problems there. No country should. 100 years ago, the mayor of Cleveland, Tom Johnson, said, if society doesn't own the public utilities will own you. And that's the situation that faces Germany today.
Yeah, so I think what has to be done is to get back the energy sector and in public ownership.
This can all be done by a natural resource tax and a land tax. Basically, a resource rent tax can do it. You will tax away what the financial sector had hoped to privatize.
Yeah, that is very good. But, so if you see the way how Merkel is acting, so can you imagine a Parteitag says, okay, we say water is a human right. And then she gives the order to all members of parliament to vote, of her party, to vote against this thing. Yeah. And then they do that. They agree because they are scared about their nice Bundestag seat. And then she gives it over to Europe. And then she says, we couldn't change that. So now this is now European law. So now the water gets privatized. But I don't know one example where look at Britain.
Britain is the perfect example, right?
It's terrible, no? The water prices went up and the whole, it doesn't work.
That's right.
So you suggest to make this a big topic for the upcoming election. What I think is a very
good example of natural resources, not only water but other natural resources, and land also. If you would have a land tax, you will prevent the prices from going up. You want to shift taxes off labor, off wage income, onto property, especially if property is absentee owned.
Mm-hmm. And the German government had still some land in East Germany, and they monetized it and they sold it to American investors.
This is great. Then they can recapture all of what has been taken or stolen by a land tax. Now that they've sold it, they can now tax it and get it back. That's the counter strategy. Russia, of course, can do the same thing.
But my fear is, or what I don't understand is, I have the feeling we are governed by a government who does everything to basically destroy the country.
It's doing it on behalf of the banks. So you have to realize this is a bank plan, and the Christian Democrats are basically the pro-bank party. They are the antithesis of Christianity. They are fighting against everything that early Christianity fought for, because Christianity began with a debt cancellation.
Yes.
That was Jesus' first sermon. So how these people can call themselves Christians, you can certainly go to the population and say these people are not Christians. They are what Jesus said were the devil.
Yes, exactly. But these people don't listen. And since they have all the media in their hands, I give you one example. We have these two main public TV channels, ARD and ZDF. And, they are big financed, and they should be in public hands. But the bosses of these TV channels are all from political parties. So when there was, for example, this huge rally in Portugal, where like 1.5 million people participated, which is like every sixth Portuguese people, they even didn't mention it in the news. Mm-hmm. So my impression is there's so much censorship at one hand. For example, like Iceland is not more existing. This is a country which doesn't exist. Sweden doesn't exist. I mean, Sweden, they said we don't join the euro, and they had reasons for doing so. And I remember very well when in the 90s they had a banking crisis in Sweden, and they solved this problem when they nationalized the bank, sold the assets, and then reprivatized the banks, but with conditions, with hard conditions. So now the Swedish banking sector is actually a very classic banking system, and that is interesting now. They make more profits than the banks in the US. Mm-hmm. So don't you, because that is what I also wanted to ask you. Like, if you have all these free money flying around, you create problems. Like, for example, how can insurances invest and raise some interest on their investments? So like the Allianz right now, this huge insurance company. I have a friend who is he's marketing insurances, and he get out of all his life insurances, his own life insurances, because he said this won't pay out.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. That's part of the system that when you base an economic system on debt instead of equity, this is where it leads. And this is the exact opposite of how German banking drove the country to success in the 19th century. The Reichsbank and the other banks all had equity as well as debt ownership in their customers. And all of that has been changed. There's very little history in Germany of how successful its banking system was by following the principles that the French Saint-Simon developed, and in America before World War II. And in England, German banking was looked at as the model for what progressive banking should be, because of its heavy emphasis on equity instead of debt. And now all of that is wiped out, and Germany is the most Anglo-American banking system of all.
Yeah, and I mean, Deutsche Bank has a ratio from 90 to 1, unbelievable.
That's right. This cannot, obviously Germany's going to be left holding the bag.
Mm-hmm. And before World War I think Germany was very successful. The banking system was very successful, and the British banking system at that time was like the same Anglo-Saxon style that it is right now. I think it was also an attempt to destroy the banking system in Germany. And now we have these, do you see, when I read this letter from Paul Feuermann, and he sees there, dire straits coming, actually for the whole world, because he says there is no way to deleverage.
That's correct, except for a debt cancellation. Ultimately, the debts are going to be written down. The question is whether they'll be just written down in the way they were in Germany in 1947, or whether there will be just a huge foreclosure, as you're having now with the Americans buying up all the German property that they can. So how long, whether they're going to let this foreclosure take place, or whether they're going to get back on the progressive developments that the world was on before World War I.
And do you think that the US comes out of this as the big winner?
No, I don't know. Well, so far it's the winner because Europe is so dead. The question is whether the banks will be the winner or labor and industry. And the banks are fighting against labor and industry everywhere.
Exactly. And now they want to have one regulator for the banks, and they want to place them into the European Central Bank.
The European Central Bank is acting essentially as the lobbyist for the commercial banks. You have to completely remake the European Central Bank into a real central bank like the Federal Reserve or the Bank of England that issues its own currency and monetizes debt. It can't do this without a real political union, and because Europe is not headed towards a political union, especially now, the central bank will have to be given up along with the Eurozone in general and perhaps the European Union.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, like I told you, I lived in Hungary, and now you had this development, like Viktor Orban came into power, and with 2/3 of majority, he is changing all kind of laws, and the kind of democracy what they had is suffering. But to tell the truth, there was never a democracy in Hungary. What I have seen there was like foreign capital coming into Hungary, giving loans to everyone, creating a vast bubble in the housing market, and then supported by carry trades with Soros, who lent big money in Japan and put it into the forint and stashed it in Hungary. And then when they took the money out, the people couldn't pay their mortgages back anymore.
That's exactly what happened in Iceland and Latvia. So the same disaster has been happening in country after country. I've written about it in Latvia, and you can see what happened in Iceland. So it's happening everywhere. I'm going to have to leave fairly soon for another. What are you going to do with this? Tell me
what I'm going to do with this. Actually, it is up to you. Like, one thing what I will do for sure, I will make a CD and give it personally to Sarah Wagenknecht on Friday.
Give her my regards.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and she's very happy that you talked to us, because it's so amazing. We are like 4.5 years or 5 years into the crisis, and still they have the same rotten arguments. And Sarah, since she is from the Linke, they say, oh, yeah, she is an interesting person. And I said, would you vote for her? No, I cannot. I cannot vote for the Linke. So she is, and the party itself is like, they don't get through. Whatever argument they take, it's ignored. It is. They are punished, and it's very difficult. But the solution for Europe, and this is the solution which will come, is at one moment we will have a debt write-down. It must happen, no? Because it's not possible. If we have all these debts, there must be some people who own these debts, and no one talks about them. There must be vast fortunes, incredible fortunes, in the same amount as there are debts. But one last question, Professor Hudson, is this one. Like, is it not that these debts are already part of the how do you say of M3? Like, they are already in the monetary system So how could a thing like a debt write-down happen technically?
The problem is when you write down debts, you write down somebody's savings too. And that's actually a good thing, because the savings are basically held by the 1%, and the 1% are holding the 99% in debt. And democracy cannot survive until you wipe out the savings that are the counterpart to these debts, because you're having an oligarchy emerge, and you have to stop that.
But how would that happen? Let's say Germany decides, or Europe decides, like, we need a debt write-down.
You do just what Germany did in 1947. All debts and obligations are it's a clean slate. It's what ancient societies did that for thousands of years. You just start. Everybody will be able to keep a given amount in the bank, say up to 10,000 euros, and above that, everybody starts with a clean slate.
Because you agree that you also think with these 2,000 billion on debt, and it's even much more in Germany, and the debt in the US, these debts will never be paid back.
That's right, unless it's by foreclosure. And that's what Europe is looking for in Cyprus. They want the oil and gas rights, they want the land, they want the tourist sites, and Cyprus is not. They want what a military invader would take, and Cyprus is not going to succumb.
At this point, we want to thank Professor Hudson for taking his time and giving us all these insights, not only related to Cyprus, but also to my own motherland, Germany, and its banking history. Sadly, I can't do that in person because during the Skype call, we got some technical problems, so the end is not available. Anyway, I hope very much that you enjoyed this interview, and if you want to know more about Professor Hudson, just visit his homepage at michaelhudson.com, and thanks a lot for your attention. Bye bye.